Chapter 49b of The Golden Bough. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For further information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Golden Bough by Sir James Frazer. Chapter 49b. Ancient Deities of Vegetation as Animals. 4. Osiris, the Pig, and the Bull. In ancient Egypt, within historical times, the pig occupied the same dubious position as in Syria and Palestine, though at first sight its uncleanness is more prominent than its sanctity. The Egyptians are generally said by Greek writers to have abhorred the pig as a foul and loathsome animal. If a man so much as touched a pig in passing, he stepped into the river with all his clothes on to wash off the taint. To drink pig's milk was believed to cause leprosy to the drinker. Swineherds, though natives of Egypt, were forbidden to enter any temple, and they were the only men who were thus excluded. No one would give his daughter in marriage to a swineherd, or marry a swineherd's daughter. The swineherds married amongst themselves. Yet once a year the Egyptians sacrificed pigs to the moon and to Osiris, and not only sacrificed them, but ate of their flesh, though on any other day of the year they would neither sacrifice them nor taste of their flesh. Those who were too poor to offer a pig on this day baked cakes of dough, and offered them instead. This can hardly be explained except by the supposition that the pig was a sacred animal which was eaten sacramentally by his worshippers once a year. The view that in Egypt the pig was sacred is borne out by the very facts which, to moderns, might seem to prove the contrary. Thus the Egyptians thought, as we have seen, that to drink pig's milk produced leprosy, but exactly analogous views are held by savages about the animals and plants which they deem most sacred. Thus in the island of Wetar, between New Guinea and Celebes, people believe themselves to be variously descended from wild pigs, serpents, crocodiles, turtles, dogs, and eels. A man may not eat an animal of the kind from which he is descended. If he does so, he will become a leper and go mad. Amongst the Omaha Indians of North America, men whose totem is the elk believe that if they ate the flesh of the male elk, they would break out in boils and white spots in different parts of their bodies. In the same tribe, men whose totem is the red maize think that if they ate red maize, they would have running sores all round their mouths. The bush negroes of Surinam, who practise totemism, believe that if they ate the capiai, an animal like a pig, it would give them leprosy. Perhaps the capiai is one of their totems. The Syrians in antiquity, who esteemed fish sacred, thought that if they ate fish, their bodies would break out in ulcers, and their feet and stomach would swell up. The Chasas of Orissa believed that if they were to injure their totemic animal, they would be attacked by leprosy, and their line would die out. These examples prove that the eating of a sacred animal is often believed to produce leprosy or other skin diseases. So far, therefore, they support the view that the pig must have been sacred in Egypt, since the effect of drinking its milk was believed to be leprosy. Again, the rule that, after touching a pig, a man had to wash himself and his clothes, also favours the view of the sanctity of the pig, for it is a common belief that the effect of contact with a sacred object must be removed, by washing or otherwise, before a man is free to mingle with his fellows. Thus the Jews wash their hands after reading the sacred scriptures. Before coming forth from the tabernacle after the sin offering, the high priest had to wash himself and put off the garments which he had worn in the holy place. It was a rule of Greek ritual that in offering an expiatory sacrifice the sacrificer should not touch the sacrifice, and that after the offering was made he must wash his body and his clothes in a river or spring before he could enter a city or his own house. The Polynesians felt strongly the need of ridding themselves of the sacred contagion, if it may be so called, which they caught by touching sacred objects. Various ceremonies were performed for the purpose of removing this contagion. We have seen, for example, how in Tonga a man who happened to touch a sacred chief, or anything personally belonging to him, had to perform a certain ceremony before he could feed himself with his hands; otherwise it was believed that he would swell up and die, or at least be afflicted with scrofula or some other disease. We have seen, too, what fatal effects are supposed to follow, and do actually follow, from contact with a sacred object in New Zealand. In short, primitive man believes that what is sacred is dangerous. It is pervaded by a sort of electrical sanctity, which communicates a shock to, even if it does not kill, whatever comes in contact with it. Hence the savage is unwilling to touch or even to see that which he deems peculiarly holy. The Bechuanas of the crocodile clan think it hateful and unlucky to meet or see a crocodile; the sight is thought to cause inflammation of the eyes. Yet the crocodile is their most sacred object. They call it their father, swear by it, and celebrate it in their festivals. The goat is the sacred animal of the Madinasana Bushmen; yet to look upon it would be to render the man for the time impure, as well as to cause him undefined uneasiness. The Elk clan, among the Omaha Indians, believe that even to touch the male elk would be followed by an eruption of boils and white spots on the body. Members of the Reptile clan in the same tribe think that if one of them touches or smells a snake, it will make his hair white. In Samoa, people whose god was a butterfly believed that if they caught a butterfly it would strike them dead. Again, in Samoa, the reddish seared leaves of the banana tree were commonly used as plates for handing food, but if any member of the wild pigeon family had used banana leaves for this purpose, it was supposed that he would suffer from rheumatic swellings or an eruption all over the body like chicken pox. The Mori clan of the Bhils in central India worship the peacock as their totem, and make offerings of grain to it; yet members of the clan believe that were they even to set foot on the tracks of a peacock they would afterwards suffer from some disease, and if a woman sees a peacock she must veil her face and look away. Thus the primitive mind seems to conceive of holiness as a sort of dangerous virus, which a prudent man will shun as far as possible, and of which, if he should chance to be infected by it, he will carefully disinfect himself by some form of ceremonial purification. In the light of these parallels, the beliefs and customs of the Egyptians touching the pig are probably to be explained as based on an opinion of the extreme sanctity rather than of the extreme uncleanness of the animal; or rather, to put it more correctly, they imply that the animal was looked on not simply as a filthy and disgusting creature, but as a being endowed with high supernatural powers, and that as such it was regarded with that primitive sentiment of religious awe and fear in which the feelings of reverence and abhorrence are almost equally blended. The ancients themselves seem to have been aware that there was another side to the horror with which swine seemed to inspire the Egyptians. For the Greek astronomer and mathematician Eudoxus, who resided 14 months in Egypt and conversed with the priests, was of opinion that the Egyptians spared the pig not out of abhorrence, but from a regard to its utility in agriculture; for, according to him, when the Nile had subsided, herds of swine were turned loose over the fields to tread the seed down into the moist earth. But when a being is thus the object of mixed and implicitly contradictory feelings, he may be said to occupy a position of unstable equilibrium. In course of time one of the contradictory feelings is likely to prevail over the other, and according as the feeling which finally predominates is that of reverence or abhorrence, the being who is the object of it will rise into a god or sink into a devil. The latter, on the whole, was the fate of the pig in Egypt. for in historical times the fear and horror of the pig seem certainly to have outweighed